Adam Kinzinger, former Republican congressman, was getting interviewed on a podcast and talked about Kevin McCarthy and why he's not pushing for George Santos to resign. Of course, George Santos getting caught for lying about almost every major aspect of who he is. And Kevin McCarthy is just saying, no, I mean, the people elected George Santos into office. And as I noted yesterday, no, they didn't. They elected someone with the same name. He looked like George Santos. He acts like George Santos. He's in the same body as George Santos. But every detail that he sold to people was false, or a bunch of the big ones. And so the voters weren't able to actually know who they were voting for because they were lied to so much. But Kevin McCarthy is not pushing for him to resign. And so when you start thinking about why that might be, you realize Kevin McCarthy has a tiny, tiny majority. And so he needs just about every member within his caucus to be supportive of him to do anything. So he doesn't want to lose George Santos. And he may have gotten some sort of agreement with George Santos that if you supported me for speaker, then I will support you in this situation. So take a look. Pretty stark terms here from Adam Kinzinger.
We have to talk about George Santos for a moment. I'm just reading a tweet here from Scott Wong. Speaker McCarthy says, well, a lot of folks here in Congress have fabricated part of their resume, and Santos will have to build the trust of voters. And he says that Santos will get some committee assignments, not the top ones.
Oh, God.
Of course, he's a freshman. I mean, why would he? But Mike Kevin being Mike Kevin when it comes to George Santos, they're not going to do anything about him, are they? Really?
No, Kevin's a piece of and let's just be honest about this, because he will say whatever he needs to say to stay in power. I'm not even saying that gratuitously to be mean to him. It's just a fact. Look at him taking Swalwell and Schiff off of committees, okay, and Ilhan Omar. He's saying, well, that's because you guys took Marjorie Taylor Greene and Gosar. And keep in mind, both of those were bipartisan votes, okay? We did it because Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jewish space lasers, school shootings never happened, among other things. Paul Gosar, because he attended a white supremacy conference. It's a little different. And that was, a couple years after Kevin McCarthy threw Steve King off of committees for doing even less than what Paul Gosar did. So, no, on the Santos things, it's different. Yeah, tons of people can exaggerate, parts of their resume. It's different than making up a whole new life. And it's different, too, than going from being worth $50,000 to, $20 million in a year and trying to figure out how that happened. But Kevin needs his vote. If this was a...
And they're specifically talking about the issue of committees and how George Santos will be treated like every other member when, again, one of the most dishonest people we've seen in a very long time. And the line that keeps being used from defenders of George Santos is he just embellished his resume. Lots of people embellish their resume. But as Adam Kinzinger said there, no, he just lied. He just made up a whole story about who he was, fabricated his whole existence for the purpose of this election. This is not the example I've used in the past is I worked 8 years somewhere, but on my resume I said a decade. Okay, I embellished that a decade sounded nicer. This is creating an entire character who is not yourself. And Kevin McCarthy is just treating him like every other member of his caucus, going to be putting him on committees, definitely not pushing for him to resign. And it shows you, as was being discussed there, Kevin McCarthy cares about his own power more than anything else. And so because George Santos is supportive of Kevin McCarthy, will vote in line with Kevin McCarthy, did vote for him as speaker, Kevin McCarthy is going to now have George Santos's back. And that is so wild and seems to go against what would be a normal person's set of principles. Doesn't seem that hard of a decision to make with someone like George Santos to stand against him. You can find me on Instagram, Luke Beasley Official.